August 9, 1986, 6:41 p.m., Knebworth Park. Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage and into legend. His throat was inflamed, his doctor had begged him not to perform, and the band feared the night might collapse in disaster. But what no one knew was this. A fan would die during the show, John Deacon would explode in rage backstage, and Freddie Mercury would vanish immediately after the final bow, leaving behind only a silver bracelet. It would be Queen's final concert with Freddie Mercury, and its emotional weight, tragic undertones, and backstage chaos were far more intense than anyone in the 120,000 strong crowd could have imagined. This wasn't just a performance, it was a farewell disguised as a celebration. The show was electric, unforgettable, and unknowingly historic. But to truly understand what made that night so monumental, we need to rewind the clock and trace the journey of the man who would become one of the greatest frontmen in rock history. Origins in Zanzibar and India. September 5, 1946, Zanzibar. In the sticky, sun-drenched heat of a British protectorate off the East African coast, a child was born who would one day command stadiums with a single gesture. That baby, Farouk Bulsara, later known to the world as Freddie Mercury, came into the world with an extraordinary trait: 4 extra teeth. It wasn't just an oddity. Freddie would later claim those extra incisors gave him his iconic vocal range, a span that reached across 4 octaves and became one of the most recognizable voices in music history. His parents, Bomi and Jair Bulsara, were Parsis, devout followers of Zoroastrianism, one of the oldest monotheistic religions on earth. They instilled strong values of discipline and tradition, but their son's destiny would soon diverge wildly from the path they imagined. Freddie's early life was shaped by a rich tapestry of cultures: African, Arab, Indian. This multicultural foundation laid the groundwork for the eclectic, genre-defying sound that would later define Queen. But paradise didn't last. 1964, Zanzibar Revolution. When Freddie was just 17, the island erupted in violence. Thousands of people were murdered. The revolution forced the Bulsara family to flee for their lives, abandoning everything. With only a suitcase in hand, they boarded a plane to England, escaping the chaos that had consumed their homeland. Before that life-altering upheaval, Freddie had already spent most of his childhood away from home, at a British-style boarding school in India called St. Peter's, located in the town of Panchgani near Mumbai. It was there at just 8 years old that he first began calling himself Freddie. At St. Peter's, something magical happened. A perceptive teacher noticed the boy's uncanny musical talent and urged his parents to pay extra for piano lessons. It was a small decision with seismic consequences. Music consumed young Freddie. He devoured records, mimicked his idols, and by 12 he had formed his first band, the Hectics. They played rock and roll covers by Cliff Richard and Little Richard, and Freddie already displayed something remarkable: stage presence, confidence, and an ear for melody far beyond his years. But it wasn't just Western rock that stirred his soul. Freddie adored Bollywood legends like Lata Mangeshkar, whose soaring voice and emotional depth profoundly influenced his own vocal style. Even then, he was blending cultures, tones, and traditions, a habit that would define Queen's unmistakable musical signature years later. By the time he arrived in England, a refugee with big dreams and no money, Freddie Mercury had already laid the foundation for the legend he was about to become. A new life in England. Freddie Mercury arrived in England not as a rising star, but as a shy immigrant teenager displaced by revolution. His family settled in a modest terraced house in Feltham, a quiet suburb near London. It was cold, gray, and unfamiliar, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of Zanzibar and India. Life in Britain wasn't glamorous, it was survival. Freddie enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic in 1964 to study art, later moving to the prestigious Ealing Art College, where he focused on graphic design. His classmates described him as eccentric, stylish, and unafraid to stand out, even when he had little to his name. He wore bold clothes, painted his nails black before it was fashionable, and walked with a theatrical flair that suggested he was destined for more. To make ends meet, Freddie took odd jobs. He washed dishes at Heathrow Airport, scrubbing cutlery while dreaming of fame. He was far from the spotlight, but he never lost sight of it. Then fate intervened. At Ealing, Freddie met a musician named Tim Staffel, who fronted a band called Smile with two other students. Brian May, an astrophysics student with a guitar built by hand, and Roger Taylor, a charismatic drummer studying dentistry. Freddie became their biggest fan, attending rehearsals, offering unsolicited advice, and suggesting ways to make their sound more theatrical. They didn't know it yet, but they were listening to a future rock god. When Tim left the band in 1970, Freddie stepped in and renamed the group Queen. The name, he insisted, was grand, regal, and provocative. "It's outrageous, darling," he said, "and it's perfect." Queen made their first public appearance in June 1970 at a charity gig. The lineup wasn't complete, they still needed a bassist. After auditioning several musicians, they found John Deacon in 1971. Quiet, brilliant, and fiercely private, Deacon was the missing piece. Around this time, Freddie changed his surname to Mercury, a bold reinvention. The name came from a line in one of his early lyrics, "Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me." It wasn't just a stage name, it was a transformation. Farouk Bulsara disappeared. Freddie Mercury had arrived. Birth of a legend. Queen's first steps were wobbly. Their self-titled debut album, released in 1973, didn't chart in the UK and barely scraped into the US at number 83. Their follow-up, Queen II, 1974, fared only slightly better. Despite their flashy style and complex arrangements, mainstream success eluded them. The critics didn't understand them, and the radio stations didn't know what to make of Mercury's theatricality. But that all changed with their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, 1974. It featured a breakout hit that would change everything, Killer Queen. The song told the tale of a high society escort wrapped in glam rock grandeur. Freddie wrote the lyrics before the melody, a rarity for him. It was witty, strange, and sonically rich, from Brian May's guitar solo, played with a sixpence coin, to the layered vocal harmonies that became Queen's signature. The track soared to number 2 in the UK and number 12 in the US. Their first real taste of international stardom. But success didn't come without friction. Roger Taylor feared Killer Queen's playful style might make them look like a novelty act. There were heated debates. The song almost didn't make it onto the album. It was recorded last, a last-minute gamble that paid off. And then came the game changer, Bohemian Rhapsody. In 1975, Queen released A Night at the Opera, and with it the strangest, boldest, and most expensive song ever recorded at the time. Bohemian Rhapsody took 3 weeks to record, included 180 overdubs, and cost £40,000, an astronomical figure for a single track. The record label, EMI, was horrified. "This is unplayable," they said. "It's nearly 6 minutes long. No radio station will touch it." The band refused to cut it, so they got creative. Their manager secretly gave the full version to DJ Kenny Everett, who played it on his show 14 times in one weekend. The public went wild. Bohemian Rhapsody shot to number 1 in the UK, where it stayed for 9 consecutive weeks. It became a cultural phenomenon, topping charts again in 1991 after Mercury's death, and again in 1992 in the US after being featured in Wayne's World. The song defied every convention. A ballad, an opera, a headbanger all in one, and Freddie Mercury sang every note like it was his last breath. Queen had arrived, and Freddie wasn't just a frontman anymore. He was a myth in motion, rise to stardom. By 1976, Queen wasn't just successful, they were untouchable. Every stage was their kingdom, every song a declaration. Freddie Mercury had bloomed into a full-blown rock icon, trading in shyness for showmanship. On stage, he was a whirlwind in glitter and velvet, commanding stadiums like a general of glam. Their albums, A Day at the Races and News of the World, gave the world 2 of rock's most enduring anthems. We Will Rock You, and We Are the Champions. Simple, thunderous, unforgettable. Queen was no longer chasing stardom. They were defining it. But behind the flamboyant mic stands and soaring vocals, Freddie was evolving. He pushed past genre boundaries, blending opera, disco, funk, rock, and pop. Queen's music was no longer easily categorized, and neither was Freddie. Each new track felt like a theatrical experiment, a sonic risk that only someone with Mercury's conviction could pull off. Their live shows grew more elaborate. By 1977, Queen was hauling around 168 lights and 12 aircraft landing lights for their Night at the Opera tour. Their stage rigs required separate generators just to power up. By the time they played Wembley in 1986, their lighting rig had over 1,000 individual lights mounted on a 5-ton crown-shaped structure. But Mercury wasn't content to hide behind pyrotechnics. He began to experiment with his own image, morphing from a glitter-drenched glam rocker into a mustachioed icon of 1980s masculinity. The transformation wasn't just aesthetic, it was personal. Inspired by the gay club scene in New York, Freddie embraced leather jackets, tight jeans, and a harder-edged look. It was a bold public statement in an era of fear and stigma, and yet amid all the costume changes and sonic shifts, Queen never stopped innovating. Art, identity, and rebellion. Freddie Mercury wasn't just reinventing music, he was reinventing identity, and he did it under a spotlight brighter than most could endure. In the video for I Wanna Break Free, Queen parodied a British soap opera by dressing in drag. Mercury in a wig, leather miniskirt, and vacuuming the floor in heels. The UK loved it, but in the US, MTV banned the video, outraged by its gender-bending boldness. It was a cultural flashpoint, and Mercury didn't blink. Instead, he doubled down on what made Queen unique: provocation with polish. Their video for Radio Gaga 1984, one of the most expensive of its time, included scenes from the 1927 sci-fi film Metropolis, for which they paid $100,000 just to license the footage. Queen wasn't just making music videos, they were creating visual cinema, years ahead of MTV's golden age. Freddie's stage presence had also reached mythical proportions. The iconic half-mic stand, a trademark of his, had been born by accident. One night, the mic stand broke mid-performance. Instead of fixing it, Mercury used the detached half like a sword, spinning it, pointing it, commanding it, like a conductor with a magic wand. It stuck. And then came the hot space era. In 1982, Queen released a controversial album that dived into disco, funk, and dance. It was bold, but fans were divided. The single body language pushed boundaries with its sexually charged video and minimalist beat. It was banned from MTV as well. Queen was officially too hot for America. Amid the tension, Mercury made a move that stunned even his fans. He released his first solo album, Mr. Bad Guy, in 1985. It was wildly experimental, layered in synthesizers and filled with the dance rhythms. Freddie, ever theatrical, dedicated the record to My Cat Jerry. Also Tom, Oscar, and Tiffany, and all the cat lovers in the universe, screw everybody else. The album didn't do well in the US, but Mercury didn't care. It was personal, strange, beautiful, just like him. And the most daring experiment was yet to come: opera, estrangement, and revival. In 1987, Freddie teamed up with Spanish opera legend Montserrat Cabal for a genre-defying album, Barcelona. The title track was a masterclass in fusion, part rock, part opera, all Mercury. Cabal, one of the greatest sopranos in the world, said Mercury's voice had the power and precision of a trained opera singer. The collaboration stunned critics and became an unexpected hit, especially in Europe. The song later became the official anthem of the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. And yet, while Mercury was reaching new creative heights, Queen was unraveling behind the scenes. After Hot Space, the band was exhausted and resentful. There were tensions over musical direction. Brian May hated the dance elements. Roger Taylor felt sidelined. John Deacon vanished to Bali without telling anyone. Freddie joked about it, singing Bali Ha'i from South Pacific, but the mood was dark. Brian May later admitted, "We hated each other for a while." There were external blows too. In 1984, Queen played a concert in Sun City, South Africa during apartheid. Despite global boycotts, the backlash was fierce. The United Nations condemned them. The UK Musicians Union blacklisted them. Even fans turned against them. The controversy left a scar. Freddie's personal life didn't help. His manager, Paul Printer, sowed chaos within the band and alienated Mercury from his bandmates. Brian May refused to speak his name, calling him only the guy who looked after Fred. By the end of 1984, Queen was fractured. But then, as always with Queen, came an unexpected comeback. July 13, 1985. Live Aid. A global audience of nearly 2 billion people watched as Queen took the stage at Wembley Stadium for a 21-minute set. They weren't even headliners, just another name on the bill. But when Freddie Mercury walked to the mic at 6:41 p.m., something cosmic happened. His voice was strained. He'd been unwell, but it didn't matter. The setlist was tight: Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, Hammer to Fall, We Are the Champions. But it was the moment. When Mercury led the crowd in rhythmic claps during Radio Gaga, that became eternal. "You bastards, you stole the show," Elton John told them backstage. And they had. Live Aid didn't just revive Queen's career, it reminded the world that Freddie Mercury wasn't fading. He was just getting started. The Magic Tour, a last hurrah. Reinvigorated by their Live Aid triumph, Queen launched into the creation of A Kind of Magic, a shimmering, bold album that would become the heartbeat of their most ambitious tour ever. Released in 1986, A Kind of Magic wasn't just a studio record, it was a soundtrack for immortality, literally. Many of its tracks were written for the fantasy film Highlander, a story about warriors who live forever. That theme, life, death, and legacy, resonated in ways even Queen didn't yet understand. One track in particular stood out, Who Wants to Live Forever, written by Brian May after watching a tragic scene in the film. The song's orchestration was cinematic. An 80-piece orchestra swelled behind Mercury's aching vocals. It became a haunting foreshadowing. Queen then announced their Magic Tour, a 26-date, 9-country sprint across Europe in just 8 weeks. It was their biggest, boldest production yet. The stage was a mechanical behemoth, 160 feet wide, flanked by runways extending into the crowd, a 20-foot-tall video screen, over 8 miles of cables, a custom sound system so loud nearby villages filed noise complaints, and towering above it all, a crown-shaped lighting rig weighing 5 tons. Everything about the tour screamed farewell, even if no one dared say it out loud. Freddie, now sporting his trademark mustache, tight white jeans, and sleeveless tank tops, prowled the stage like a lion in its prime. He was defiant, electric, and utterly magnetic. But off stage, whispers swirled. Freddie wasn't well. His voice, while still stunning, showed cracks. His body, once powerful, was thinner. Yet he pressed on, telling no one the truth, not even the band. The Magic Tour was both a victory lap and an unspoken goodbye. The Final Bow. August 9, 1986 in Tottenham, Knebworth Park, England. Queen stepped onto the stage for what no one knew would be their final concert with Freddie Mercury. 120,000 fans had flooded the park. It was the largest show of the tour, the grand finale. As the opening chords of One Vision thundered across the fields, Freddie appeared in his iconic white tank top and jeans, fist raised. The energy was volcanic. But backstage, things were unraveling. Just 18 minutes before showtime, the band's normally calm bassist, John Deacon, snapped. In a rare outburst, he hurled his bass guitar across the dressing room. It nearly struck Roger Taylor's drum technician. "I can't do this anymore," he later whispered to Brian May. "It's too much." The pressure, the pain, the knowing, it was all catching up. Mercury's doctor had warned him earlier that day. His throat was inflamed. He shouldn't sing, but Mercury refused to cancel. "They came for a show," he said, "and they'll get it." The band had a backup setlist stripped of the harder vocal tracks, but Freddie ignored it. During Under Pressure, his voice cracked on a high note. Instead of retreating, he turned to the crowd and had them sing it with him. It became a shared moment of vulnerability and power. At 8:03 p.m., they played Who Wants to Live Forever. The lyrics hit like a eulogy. "There's no time for us, there's no place for us." Then came Bohemian Rhapsody, where Freddie, against all odds, sang parts of the operatic section live, something he hadn't done in years. He even hit a high note he'd avoided throughout the tour. And finally, We Are the Champions. Mercury's voice cracked. Instead of pulling back, he leaned into the note, holding it longer, turning the weakness into strength. The roar of the crowd could be heard miles away. At 9:02 p.m., God Save the Queen played. Normally, the band would take a bow and walk off, but this time Freddie lingered. He closed his eyes. He bowed deeply. "Thank you, lovely people. Good night and sweet dreams." Then he disappeared into the shadows. It would be the last time Freddie Mercury ever performed live. What the crowd didn't see, what fans saw, was epic. What they didn't see was tragic. Backstage, Freddie left immediately after the final note, which was unlike him. Usually he stayed for drinks, hugs, laughter, but this night he was silent. His longtime assistant, Peter Freestone, later revealed that Freddie had received a phone call from his doctor before the show. The news wasn't good. Freddie had left behind his silver bracelet, a piece of jewelry he'd worn at every performance since 1977. A cleaner found it later. It was returned to him quietly. That small oversight spoke volumes. In the crowd, tragedy struck. A 23-year-old fan named Michael Jennings collapsed during Who Wants to Live Forever. He'd won his ticket just 2 days earlier from a radio contest. His friend Sarah said he was having the time of his life. Then suddenly, he fell. Medics arrived, but he couldn't be revived. He was declared dead at 9:43 p.m. while Queen played Bohemian Rhapsody. The cause? An undiagnosed heart condition. News of his death didn't reach the band until hours later, but it would result in stricter safety protocols at future large-scale concerts across Europe. As the band left the venue, Freddie sat silently in the car, dabbing at his eyes with a handkerchief. Roger Taylor later found him alone in the dressing room, slouched and pale.
"Darling," Freddie whispered, "I think I've given it my all." At the time, Taylor thought it was just post-show exhaustion, but now he knows it was a goodbye. Deacon, who would eventually retreat from the public eye entirely, said it was the hardest performance of his life. He admitted he cried during These Are the Days of Our Lives, convinced they'd never play together again. And he was right. That night at Knebworth wasn't just the end of a tour, it was the end of an era. Freddie Mercury didn't fade away. He burned brighter than anyone, knowing full well the flame was finite. On August 9, 1986, under the lights of Knebworth Park, he gave his fans one final explosion of sound, style, and soul, a farewell wrapped in thunder. What followed was silence, secrecy, and slow goodbyes. For 5 more years, Mercury retreated from the spotlight, recording music in the shadows, fighting a battle he never publicly acknowledged until the very end. He turned to those he trusted, surrounded himself with cats, art, and love. He whispered his truth to the world only when he was ready, just 1 day before he died, and then he was gone. But Freddie Mercury never really left. His voice still soars through stadiums. His image still flashes across screens. His music, defiant, operatic, absurd, and brilliant, lives in every note we hum, every anthem we scream at full volume. If this story moved you, if you felt the magic, the music, and the man behind it all, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below and tell us your favorite Queen moment or Freddie memory. And if you want more deep dives into rock legends, make sure to like, share, and ring the bell so you never miss a story.